Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Brady Dahmer, and we're going to be talking about his book. And the book is called, and I want to get this right, Blindspots: How to Prepare for What You Don't See Coming. And it's the marketing edition that we're going to be talking about. Brady, where can people find you?
So you said not to say Vancouver, Canada, but that's essentially where I'm sitting right now. But LinkedIn is probably the easiest and best place to find me, and that's
And
Brady
we can get a copy of your book on Amazon, can't you? Because I've
and
access to it.
Amazon. And also too, you can, another great place would be blindspotshandbook.com, and that's probably more info and things like that. So yeah, come find me and reach me on LinkedIn and grab a copy of the book.
Think about my description of the book is it's not a classic. I'm trying to find a book. It's not one of a classic where there's lots and lots of words.
No,
It's you've actually written it where there's in a way to guide the person to actually read it. So it's colorful. It's full of images, just as you expect a marketing person to write it. What was your inspiration for this?
Two things. One, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. This
You're
is
welcome.
awesome. We had a great chat before, and honestly, I think we could talk for hours just on marketing and clients and everything else. So really appreciate it, Tim. So I had two inspirations kind of from the book. From a graphic standpoint, that being all the, for instance, like the old dummies books. Remember those old orange or yellow and black books that
Yeah.
you can kind of pick up and you could read, which gave you enough information, but there was iconography that would walk you through it, and there's a lot of tools and tips and things, and it was just although I wasn't a big fan of the design because it just I wanted more color and everything else, I love the sense of the information delivery system that it had, because you can skim through things, and that was always the bar that I wanted to reach for there. But the inspiration for the content of the book came from a couple clients, a couple calls, and of course, everybody's gone through bad projects, whether it be from your side or from the contractor side. And I had a couple friends that sort of went through some really bad sort of let's call them projects with contractors, and they reached out to me and asked me what my thoughts on how to fix it. And I just realized that there's sometimes a gap of information, because just a simple question would have solved some of these big problems for them. But one of the biggest issues is that they didn't know what questions to ask. So I was like, oh, I bet there's a lot of those out there. So I started fishing around all of my my friends and my friends, past clients, say, hey, what is your worst project story when dealing with a client, or from like a creative contractor, like a
It's like
copywriter,
working with a
designer,
marketing agency
yeah,
or yeah.
all those things. And it's just there was a kind of a huge gap in knowledge between kind of theory that we kind of stuff that we learn in school to to actually business. So this is kind of a book of all the hard lessons I learned. And I gotta say, the original title of the book was "I Wish I Knew That Before I Started," kind of thing. And that's really where it was, is in sharing. The content of the book is about sharing all those hard lessons that both myself and my colleagues have made, all the hard lessons we've had to learn, whether or not be through paying out money for certain projects, or hiring the wrong person, or all those sort of things that will kind of tank or make a project kind of go south. And that was so in that, I thought, hey, why not write a book of all the sort of problems we've ever run into, so that we can help alleviate that and help educate people on how not to do things, but then pack it full of all of the, for each one of the insights, how might I actually approach this problem, or what do I do in this situation? So it's like 25 years of lessons learned and tools and tips on how to do projects a lot more productively, get more out of your team, get more to your project, and that kind of thing.
Because just by looking at the index at the front of the book,
Yeah.
what you take us through is the what you call internal prep. So that's about doing all the research that you need.
Yeah.
So talk us through that, because that's the foundation, isn't it? Of even before, because I think quite often what we do is that we see a task, and of course we run off and do the task rather than doing all the groundwork first and foremost.
No, and I've been using this analogy as of late. And so yeah, the way great insight there of the way the book is laid out, or from an information standpoint, is from the very beginning of the project to like the very end of the project, and it's split into kind of 4 chapters. Before you even think about hiring, creative consultants, get your own sort of house in order kind of thing. Like learn, who are your competitors, learn who your target clients are, what your messaging, what your branding. You can find those, you can hire people to help those out, but do a little bit of sort of house cleaning and get things sorted before you start hiring people, because depending on when you want that project executed, you kind of want to have stuff ready and organized and to go, because I cannot count how many times we've asked clients for a logo or for some other materials or logins to a website, only to have that person be on vacation or they're not working at the company anymore. And so all of these little things can just, whittle away at the time for when the project goes live or when you kind of need it completed by. So the first part is kind of having your house in order. And then it's kind of like hiring, like I go through hiring the right people.
You
And
talk about
then
hiring
running
the
the
right
project.
team, don't you? Next, yeah.
Yeah. And then, it's the first part is really about understanding, for all the small, sorry, maybe to start this off, is this book is really written to help small business entrepreneurs, anybody who's got, even a side hustle, for them to kind of understand what's going on. So it's written for them because I figured that I could offer the most value for them, because I feel they have the kind of most amount to lose, whether or not be, time and money. And so it's written in that vein. So I kind of, I go through those first steps of, if you don't know who your target client is or who your competition is, a designer's not going to be that effective, or branding agency is not going to be that effective if you don't understand, what it is that you need done and for who. So doing that research is so key. I touch on it lightly, but you can honestly hire people to go in more. ChatGPT is a fantastic way to do that competitive analysis and that competitive research. But what I kind of one of the analogies I use as of late is like when you're playing any kind of sport, let's just say American football or European football, you need to know what's happening on the other side, what plays the other team makes, and what their setup is. Because if you don't understand, again, that's competitive analysis, where the opportunities are, you're always just playing defense, and that's just, you're pouring money into it. It's just you're just pouring money into a money pit. You might as well just be burning it, because marketing is there for you to stand up and for you to keep moving forward. And if you don't know what actions to take and what moves to make moving forward, it makes it really difficult for anybody to do, from a creative consultant side. It's really tough for us to do our job and kind of reach maybe the milestones or goals that you have for those marketing projects, for the, whatever goals you have for it. So
Yeah, so you talk about how to collect your assets, know about your password, your passwords, and one of the things that you also talk about is actually having a project brief.
yes.
Because I was approached by a brand to do some influencer work for them, and we got on the call, and their first question was, how much? And I said, how much for what?
Yeah.
And they said, oh, we don't know.
Yeah.
I said, well, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Do-
Yep.
I can write you an article. I could do something on my podcast.
Yep.
You could sponsor my next book, but what do you want me to do? And they went, oh, we don't know. I said, do you have a project brief? He said, no, we've not written that yet.
Yeah. Yep. Again,
Okay.
it's a little bit of waste of your time and energy and effort in that situation. It's kind of like, a contractor showing up on site when there's no blueprints there, right? There's nothing there, and you need to know what that objective is. And even, I even go as far as, when it comes to, let's just take a house building analogy, but a really great creative brief not only has, all the details, I'd say it's like drafting up a really great blueprint, knowing where everything is, but also a really great brief will give insight to maybe where it needs to be and where it's going. So for instance, if you're laying a foundation, are you just going to keep your house like a 1-story house, or do you have, aspirations to build, another floor on it, or a garage next to it, and understanding what that, what your marketing timeframe looks like and works, you can then sort of maybe start piling or, bringing more into it. And there's a bigger vision for all of it as well. So you can, and that's really what creative teams are there for, is help you envision and sort of see your ideas and help you realize them for the future. So that's a really great creative brief, which is so key, which has all of the things, which also to the competitive analysis, who you are, what your brand is, but also what I've also asked clients are, what are the needs to have, what's the kind of like the must haves, the should have, and the nice to haves kind of thing, right? So depending on their budget, we kind of add some stuff in, and that's kind of, big picture. It'd be nice to have 10 stores, but maybe let's just focus on one for the time being. But what's in that store, what's the basic things that you need to go to market for it, and that's that should be laid out in the brief. But also, like, oh, we're also possibly going to get, once the spot next door comes available, we might extend it, or so it's a really good branding and marketing team will always kind of push the client to not just think about that current project, but what does it look like in 6, 12, 18 months as well. So that's really key for any kind of
and then in the next section, when you talk about building the team, you talk about, have you seen their portfolio, have you spoken to their clients and that, but you also go on to probably the most important part, which is, how is it going to be paid for? And you
yes.
talk about the difference
Yep.
of a retainer or per project, or
Yep.
is there commission and the payment terms and stuff like that, because so often that's missed.
It is, and also a lot of in the book I give the sort of like the pros and cons of each, because sometimes somebody will come to you inevitably, like the amount of times I've been, being a designer and be able to kind of produce packaging or a website or any kind of other materials an entrepreneur might need. We always get asked, being like, would you take this in trade, or would you like stocks in the company? All of these sort of different payment options, which some are good and some are bad. Some are, I shouldn't say good and bad. It's risk tolerant. So if it was someone in your family being like, hey, I need a package for this new product idea that I have, do you mind doing it? And their family. But if it's someone that you don't know or don't trust, actually don't trust, you haven't earned or you haven't gained that trust, or they don't have that that legacy of what they've done, it's a little bit of a hard decision. So there's a lot of different ways to pay, but finding the right way to pay that fits your schedule, your payment, your sort of your revenue schedule, how it comes in. One of the interesting ways, one of the things that we did is that we did almost like a scale, like for a client of ours that we'd kind of worked on a little bit for a year, but he broke off and was building his own thing. But he said, hey, can you guys help me with our branding? I don't have a lot, but this is, we're expecting this revenue within the next 12 months. So we actually scaled the payment. So the first payment was very small, but over the 12 months, it grew to where the final amount that was billed equaled it out. So it was almost like the invoicing scaled month over month as revenue came in for them, with with the final payment being the largest, but also it paid for everything, beforehand. And it was great because we were able to kind of work with them in a way that was really comfortable, and they also could grow. So they weren't, as you know, marketing and branding and design is always very front heavy for any, for everybody. It's a very big, very important, but very big expense up front. So there's a few different ways for you to kind of balance out what that is. And just different contractual ways you can get paid.
And the third section, you talk about running the project. And I think it's in it. You make such an important point about getting stuff in writing. I mean, you actually have the
Yeah.
heading, don't you? If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
There's no such thing as a gentleman's agreement.
Nope, no, not at all. And I've got a personal story on that as well. And I've I'll give an insight and sort of like what we do. So 15 years ago, I got burned because I was working with a client. We were very friendly because it was a larger project. And the last question I asked was, we're finalizing this very large brochure for them. I asked them over the phone. I was like, hey, is everything good? Are we good to go? Is it approved? I can't remember the language, but it was just sort of like, it wasn't in writing. And I was like, is everything good to go? And they said, yes, send it off to print, only, for them to get a call, for me to get a call, uh, you know, an hour after the print piece got delivered to say that the phone number on the back of the brochure was wrong and we had to reprint the entire brochure. That print cost was $15,000 originally. The printer gave me a little bit of discount at nine, but still that was $9,000. That was a $9,000 signature that I missed for that, right? So there was all the revenue from that project gone because I didn't get it in writing, and that's such an important thing is like, and this is, goes into my kind of tips and sort of the, best practices is that use email. Don't, we communicate. The only time we communicate on like text or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger is just when it's kind of quick and easy. But if it's a change request or anything like that, and some clients message me or WhatsApp me, I will literally take that content from that text and copy it into a body of an email, because email you have a chain that you can follow up, you can search on. So that's a really another great best practice there is don't take it off all the social and sort of like quick messaging apps and put it into email, because again, that's another thing too, that they're hard to look for when a client says, hey, I messaged you these changes, or oh my goodness, voice memos. Right now I charge clients extra for when they leave a voice memo, with changes. I literally just go have it transcribed and then message them back thing, is this what you meant to say? And so it's just, you have to find ways to make things easily trackable so that on both sides, everybody knows where the project stands, everybody's good to go. And then, there's no, texting and messaging is all very conversational, versus I find email is very business oriented. It's in writing then,
Yeah.
right? So there's no mistake.
Yeah. And you also then have the final section is about the project wrap.
Yeah.
And I think having a review about in leadership, it's usually called an after action review,
Yep.
which is it's not a post mortem, because a post mortem is where something goes wrong.
Yeah.
But it's about having that review of what did we do? Could we have done it better? Because we only learn from feedback, and so well maybe we should do this better next time.
Yeah, 100%. It's that sort of sports analogy. Like if you don't know where what is working and what isn't, you don't know what to improve. You don't know how to work on something. You don't know what was a success and what wasn't, right? And sort of, with any, again, a sports analogy, if an athlete continually just goes out on field without any sort of knowledge of what they're doing well or what they could be improve on, they're always kind of stay the same, and they're just gonna show up, but they're never growing. They're never, there's they're never gaining anything. And honestly, when you put money towards marketing and anything else, there's so many really great tools out there, but you almost need to make sure that you can, actually, I think even in the second chapter, I go into, before you start the project, also find a way to measure it, to go back on the end, because if you don't put some measurement tools in place, again, some of these conversations, these postmortems and the conversation afterwards, they're a little bit meaningless. In marketing, you should always be trying to, if not step up, if not just stay flat, or sort of, it didn't work, then, you tried it, and then, hey, what can we improve on next time? But you don't know what to improve on if you don't have the analytics, if you don't have the numbers, if you don't have a device or an engine to kind of give you feedback on any of that stuff. And this is just, it's just burning money otherwise, right? Yeah.
And I think that it's having that we said that we would do this.
Yeah.
You would pay us a certain amount of money, and we've done that.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. But the other thing that's important, one of my business partner always talks about, is that we say, did we do a good job? Yeah, we did a good job. Yeah. But no, what's the client's perception?
Yeah.
Because whether we think it's a good job or not, it's the client perception that's important. Will they reference us?
Yeah. Well, he also, this actually brings up another really kind of, it's the PTSD is setting in from clients who, well, in some projects, as even if when you complete something, let's just say even a social media campaign, actually, LinkedIn is probably a really great example because um, to get a lot of traction on LinkedIn, and I'm just using this as an example for all the projects, but um, LinkedIn, it's great for you to post, but they also want you to be on the platform and communicate, because that way it just sort of you're on the platform communicate. So what I'm trying to get at is that it's great to launch a product, but if you do not have a strategy and a plan for next steps or even capacity on what those look like, it's great to it's like a restaurant that sends out 1,000 flyers, but they only have seats for five, and 50 people show up. So you have to make sure, as successful as a campaign is as well, you also have to make sure that you're ready for whatever um, the capacity of what might happen if it is a success, or what those next steps look like, or if it isn't, making sure that you then kind of figure out what that is and keep rolling with that. But understanding it's not just, maybe a better way to phrase it is that just because you're launching, the finish line is not the final step of launching a marketing or social campaign or anything else like that. There's so many other things that need to kind of happen behind that or after that, to even make it even more of a success, or make sure that you have capacity to keep it going. And that's such a really big thing as well, just making sure on all levels that you know what you're getting into when you do launch something. And that is also a huge thing when launching it, to making sure that you've got enough people on staff to answer the phones or whatever that might look like, but know what maybe the results of the campaign are. And that's really key, because we've seen that go horribly wrong, where we've put out a campaign only to get messages from people that we know being like, hey, we haven't heard back from this person, and we've messaged them twice based on this campaign or whatever else. How do we get in contact with them? And so just know what make sure you have the capacity and the budget to left over for whatever that looks like for next steps. So don't blow it all in just on one thing, but work do. Hence, that's why strategy's in place, because you can notch things out and kind of spread it out, and you understand what the steps are.
Brady Dahmer, thank you so much for coming on, talking about your book. Have you got a copy there that you can hold up? Or?
I do.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Also, too, you can also see how easy and how colorful it is. Again, each section is color coded, and I've got these gorgeous little icons throughout the book. But that's
and it's called Blindspots: How to Prepare for What You Don't See Coming, the marketing edition. And you can get a copy of that on Amazon, can't you?
That's correct. Yes.
And where can we find you?
BradyDahmer.com on LinkedIn, and BlindspotsHandbook.com is my URL.
Excellent, Brady. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about it. I love the book. It's less is more in design, isn't
it? It is absolutely it is.
Yep. And it's focused, to the point, and it gives anybody who's running any marketing campaign all of the background about what they need to plan and execute. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, it really does. And it was a pleasure, Tim. Always great chatting with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Brady.
Thank you so much.